Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and another video. So it is a new weekend and we're back on the Chevy project. So what I have going on today is I have roughly about 2,000 miles on this truck since doing the axle swap, and found a couple bugs we got to take care of. So first one I would like to try and do is I need to go through the ABS sensors. So WFO sends you adapters to go from Chevy to Ford, and for whatever reason the ABS plugs on the Ford ABS plugs are different than what they send me, and what I think it is it's different years. I think that this is for the older 05-ish era, and seeing this is a 2011, I think they changed it up. So, and of course, in my fashion, the wrecking yard did include the other half of the plug, except I lost one. So now what I got to do is I got to rip apart these really nice adapters that I didn't really want to, because I could have had these in my back pocket and been like, oh hey, I'm on the side of the road, I need to change out an ABS or whatever. So that's a bit of a bummer. But the other thing is I could, and I might, let me think about it for a second, I might cut up my original Chevy ABS sensors, which is what's in the truck now, except it's kind of a bummer for whoever decides to buy the lift or whatever, and the unit bearings are going with it and snag the ABS wires. So I gotta think, do I do it for myself, or so anyways, I might cannibalize and harvest the wiring out of the unit bearings that are in it now, instead of ruining those super cool adapters I just tossed across the garage. But either way, we're going to make some ABS wires work, because right now what I got going on is when you're cruising down the freeway, the wind is actually blowing the wire into my rotor, and it put a little gash in the wire, and every once in a while my ABS light turns on. So that's really the only problem I've had with it. I did reach out to WFO and talk to them about my track bar replacement, and it is in the wrong spot. It's too far forward. So they did mail out a new track bar bracket and a couple other things, but it didn't come in the mail yet. So that's a bit of a bummer, because I was really kind of banking on that being in today. So I do have a couple other things though I'd like to try and accomplish. I'd like to pull the front bumper off and fix a couple things on that and get it painted. It's about 50 degrees outside, so I don't know if I'm going to get to painting this bumper this weekend or not, but I'd like to try to think I can. I have new body mounts. I've got the S&B silicone body mounts I'm kind of looking forward to trying out. New engine mounts and a new trans mount, because after doing all this work, it's got some new rattles and shakes and stuff to it, and I'd like to try to see if we can get rid of those. So I would like to try to put in some sort of a cross member, because as of right now there's not much of a cross member. Once you cut all of the IFS stuff, you cut all those cross members out, and not really much in the front of the truck anymore. So I'd like to try to come up with something there just to be safe. So anyways, let's get to it. Last weekend though, I did weld in a piece of like 3/8 thick flat bar across the frame rails and modified my skid plate here. Oh, that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to move my oil cooler around for my trans, because it's working, I'm just not a big fan of how it looks right now. So I'd like to get it more behind the screen, so a little bit better airflow. But I did end up cutting, I guess I never really showed it much before, but this extended down quite a bit, maybe another 6 inches or so, and so I cut all this off and had to move this grill. I just cut this out, had like a 1/2 inch on each side and slid it up. Not very far, I think it was like 1.25 inches, but kind of see how I have it in there now. So it should be pretty strong if it needs to be. Hopefully it doesn't, but it's there. So I did end up playing around with the preload on my springs a bit, and I think this is about where ride height is going to be. I would like to eventually put a set of hydro bumps in here, but we'll get there when we can. Oh, I totally forgot the other project that I have in store for this weekend. I hope is the PSC RAM came in. The only problem was the other part that was supposed to be in the package from WFO is I ordered a clamp for the tie rod. So I happen to have a tie rod clamp laying around, and I'll get that unboxed. I don't know if it's the same size though, because it's a clamp for my Gladiator, and if it's the same diameter tie rod, which it's got the, oh boy, I don't remember who makes it, but it's got a pretty good sized steering kit on it, so it might actually be the same diameter tubing. So if it is, I might use it up, and then whatever comes in with WFO, I'll put it on the Gladiator. But we'll see. I might need to limit the RAM. I was told that these are from WFO, that this whole setup is limited from like about 7 5/8 of a stroke, and my RAM is 8 inch. But I'm also hearing rumors that if you're limited in your box, that the RAM will stop. So I don't know, but we might figure it out. So, and also we're going to be putting the sway bar back on. I don't have the stuff for that yet. This thing is kind of a boat going down the freeway. Jerk the wheel and it'll make you seasick, so we'll get to that eventually. Those parts might be in on Monday, but seeing that I cut all the sway bar brackets off of the axle, I'm going to have to weld brackets back on. So it is what it is. Make it work. Alright, so I'm putting together this table here. Show you guys a couple things. And I came across a discovery. So let me show you guys what I got going on right now for the camera, tripod, and I got a light right there and whatnot. This is just a LED spotlight I got from AutoZone. And it's actually kind of neat because it has a USB plug-in behind it, so I can leave the camera plugged into that so it charges at the same time. The only thing that sucks about this whole deal is that I'm using my phone here, you can kind of see, but this is a mic adapter and charger deal, and it comes out like all the time. But I was sitting here getting ready to do all this. I was like, man, that light's kind of bright. And I shut it off and I'm like, yeah, it's too dark. Let me make you guys a soft light. Just a trash bag. What do you think of that? Okay. Matter of fact, it might be a little too dark, so let me unfold it one time. Make it a little brighter. Too bright. You don't need all that fancy stuff. I think that'll work pretty well. So anyways, back to the task at hand. I decided to clean out the bed of my truck real quick. My feet are soaked. Apparently I've got some holes in my boots. I happen to find the other plug. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to cut this plug off and solder this plug on. And normally I would unpin these and solder the new wire to the pin, but I don't really feel like going about it like that right now. This is going to work completely fine. So what I'll do is I'll get these prepped and ready to go, but I figured I would kind of go over a couple things what I use to solder wiring. I kind of nerd out on this. Everybody has their own methods. There's not really, I mean, there is a wrong way, but there's not really a wrong way. So, but if you kind of nerd out on wiring, try this solder, this Delta branded solder. There's a part number there if I can hold it steady enough. This stuff is awesome. I get it from a local store in Salem, Oregon called Norvac. That is a super cool electronics place. But I have also bought this off Amazon before. And then I got the old Harbor Freight rolls of electrical tape and heat shrink. I've got a couple other tools. I also got this. If you're looking to try a new soldering iron with like a temperature dealio there, this brand has done me right pretty good. This Velleman VTSS5U. This thing, it's so good I bought 2 of them. So this is like the crappy one that I keep in my truck, and then I got a nice one that still has a sponge and everything on it. But also I ended up buying this recently, this Snap-on deal. This is pretty cool too. It's got some pretty trick stuff to it. I'll be right back. Okay, so the thing that is cool about this, although it kind of, I shot myself in the foot talking about it a second ago, but this thing is neat because you can disconnect these. And then, so that was like the little heat gun deal that you can use for your heat shrink, and there's a soldering tip. And what's cool about this whole deal is that it's just a quick disconnect. So that way, if you're trying to switch between this and your heat gun deal, you don't burn your fingers. And so anyways, this has been pretty handy to have in my truck toolbox, but all your attachments go on the bottom, and I guess when I went to go pick it up, it fell out. So, and it comes with the sponge too that conveniently falls out every time you do anything with it. But nonetheless, it has been a pretty awesome tool to keep in the truck toolbox. Pretty cool. So yeah, anyways, I will get this thing fired up and getting warmed up. Also, I got this little wire holder tool. This thing's kind of neat. I do have one of the ones that's got like a stand and alligator clips. Conveniently lost the alligator clip, so I'll be using this guy today. I'm kind of thinking I might grab the vise to set this in, just to have a little bit more of a stand. But to put this in your truck toolbox if you need to do some quick field repair, pretty cool. Also has like some little adjustment deal here. Pretty handy. The Snap-on wire cutters and strippers, they're cool. Also has it's just a basic crimping tool and wire strippers and stuff. At AutoZone and O'Reilly's and whatnot, Dorman makes like a knockoff set of these, and they've got orange grips on them. I've been tempted to try them. They're only like $15, which these are like, I think these are like 75 or something. These are awesome. I absolutely love these. I've heard of the Dorman ones, like if you reef on them a little hard, they will break. For whatever reason, the camera decides to keep not recording. So If it looks a little choppy, that's what's going on. And then you got to get yourself a set of flush cut wire cutters. These things are awesome. You go to cut a zip tie, you can get right up to that little square piece. What do you call that? Anyways, you can just cut your tail right off. You don't have to worry about cutting yourself or anything, and they're cool. Do not cut wire with them though. They will get screwed up. And these tips are super sharp, so you can stab yourself with them. I even seen that, like, when you buy them from Snap-on now, they even have like a little plastic guard that goes over them, so that way you don't kill anybody with them. But I'll grab the vise, set it up here on this table, which is super nice and stable. We'll get to cutting some wire. Alright, so I got the vise set up here. I also thought about some other tools that are super handy to have. So if you got any corroded plugs or anything like that, which I'll clean these all out before I stick them back in the truck, just because I don't know what they've been through. But check these out. This little kit is a diamond file set for like your Deutsch connectors. Goes all the way down to some little guys. These things are super awesome to have. I have used these way more than I would like to have, but super awesome. Look these up. They're made by IPA, Diamond Micro Round Files. These things are 100% worth owning if you're messing around with farm equipment and stuff's getting wet and corroded. Super cool. Also, you have these guys, and these are like a little tweezer. That's a Diamond File 2. So that way on your flat blade stuff, you can grab these and just work your corrosion out of it. These things have saved me so many times, and you get some different sizes. All this stuff is made by IPA. These things are amazing, and they're not very, I mean, they're expensive, but they're not expensive. I think these are like 20 or 30 bucks for one pack. And then here is the male pin cleaner for your Deutsch connectors too. It's got a full circle dealio there and then a half moon there, so you can clean the male pins for your Deutsch connectors. And again, I've used that stuff way more than what I would want to, but corrosion happens. So, alright, this is some pretty nice stuff that WFO puts on this little adapter harness. Holy cow, they use a nice thick wire too. This is some nice stuff. Okay. Somewhere I have a roll of Tessa tape I wanted to wrap all this stuff up with, and I cannot find it. And if you don't know what Tessa tape is, you'll have to look it up. I haven't tried the knockoff brand that they sell on Amazon yet, but I want to. It's just like a roll of electrical tape, but it's cloth. And it's like what BMW and some other European companies wrap all their wires with. It's supposed to be like flame resistant and whatnot. It's some nice stuff, and if you ever have to pull your wiring apart, it doesn't leave that gross residue behind, so your hands don't get covered in crap. Pretty cool stuff. It's expensive, but if you want to make some harness look really good, man, that Tessa tape's the way to go. It looks awesome. So what I'm going to end up doing is we will get these stripped and ready to go. And then the other thing I like to do, if you don't want to have to repin everything, you can just leave yourself a good little amount of wire. So if you ever come across where you need that plug, you have a spare and you got some wire on it. Worst case scenario, you can put some butt connectors on it. It'll work good enough. I don't know if this is going to shrink tight enough. if you go, you're curious if this stuff is going to shrink tight enough on your wire, cut yourself off a little tester and see before you get stuck in a position where it's like, oh crap, I gotta unsolder everything just to see, you know, just to put the right size shrink on it. Not tight enough. Okay, we gotta find some different shrink wrap. Okay, so apparently the 1/4 inch stuff I had is too big. I do happen to have some smaller stuff, but I will tell you right now, this is the adhesive line stuff, and yeah, it is good stuff, right? I think that this is the non-adhesive line. They both have their spot, and with this being in a harness, my idea was I was going to put the non-adhesive line stuff on these wires first, and then put a strip of the adhesive stuff over it to block out moisture and whatnot. I don't like this stuff, mainly because if you have a whole bunch of these connectors or connections with this adhesive line stuff, you have a big ball, because when these shrink, they don't shrink as tight. So if you're in a tight clearance area, not really, in my opinion, that ideal. So it'll work. I think I'm going to put this stuff back over all of this, so I'm not really too concerned, and it'll do its job. But that's just a little tip. I'm not a big fan of using the adhesive stuff on everything, because it just makes a big old ball mess. So anyways, let's get this going. Now if you can, I do like to put a little bit of a twist in the wire, get it wrapped up, just to make sure it ain't going to go anywhere. And these are not going to fit in that handy dandy tool, so we'll make do. Sometimes that's what's nice about the alligator clip. If you don't have a lot of clearance, you can get them to fit in your wire holding tool, but this will be fine. Okay, grab some of your solder. I like to go on both sides of the wire. I like to try and heat up the top first, then heat up the bottom, and then it'll suck the solder through the wire. And then, seeing I don't have a sponge, hit it with a little wire brush, and you're good. And I am not going to worry about that connection ever falling apart. Okay. There we go. We got 2 soldered up connections. Not the prettiest, but they're gonna work. Normally, it really depends on what you're doing with the wire. If it's going to be in a high vibration area like where this is going to be, I do like to twist the wires together just so that way the solder isn't totally holding it all together. Okay, that'll do. That's the other thing nice about this is it's magnetic. So if you're working on something underneath the hood of your truck or whatever, pretty cool. There we go. Yeah, that looks good. And then I'll put some electrical tape around them. What I should have done was put some bigger heat shrink over it and then went over the ends. If I would have thought about that, I totally would have done that. Matter of fact, I might do that anyways. Slide that thing down. Slide that thing down. Now these pins are kind of grody, so I am going to grab this thing, clean these out real fast while I got them out. I do have some electrical cleaner that's missing the top, so I will go for this, the Deoxit D5. This stuff is killer and super expensive also. It's like 18 bucks a can. But if you're messing with something that is corroded pretty well, it's definitely worth trying. That'll do. And then I also happen to grab my plug-in heat gun. So that'll put some work in real quick. Alright, there we go. That'll work out. That'll work out plenty good. Turned out fairly decent. Okay. Off to the next one. It's all shrink wrapped. And with these adhesive ones, when you go to heat them up, make sure I lined up on the camera. You can see the adhesive push out the end a little bit. Well, you know it's good and glued. You're not going to get any moisture in your wires. These little fancy keychain dealios full of electrical connector depinning tools, I guess you can call them. You can get that on Amazon. Pretty cheap. Worth having if you're pulling plugs apart. Okay. Now we got two adapters. And before you go to shove these back in your wheel bearings, make sure there's no metal shavings on any of this stuff. I might put a little bit of grease on this thing before I shove it back in the bearing, but we'll see if I remember when the time comes. I am going to put a little bit of dielectric grease in here too, just for funsies. That'll work. Just work the plug in and out a little bit, work that grease in. There we go. You got one speed sensor, ABS sensor ready to go with an adapter on it. Alright, I have both ABS sensors ready to rock and roll. This looks pretty bad, but it is better than nothing, and honestly, I need to revisit this anyways, regardless, because every single one of the factory bolts is busted out. It's a mess. And then this will get bolted to the bumper, but of course the bumper is a little loose right now because of the I don't have the braces in that hold the corner of the bumper up, because I plan on pulling this off still. We'll see what happens. At least we have liners in. It's a shame they look this ugly. Alright, it's been a little bit now, and I took a break from doing ABS sensor stuff and started doing hydraulic ram stuff. So where I'm at right now is I had modified a tie rod clamp here. I had to add these ears to it, so I had a PSC sends you some brackets, and so I cut these up to kind of fit a little better, and I welded the brackets on the axle already. Garage is a total mess, and I didn't realize it's 10 o'clock right now. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the tire put on this thing. I'm going to back the truck out enough to where I can close the door and try not to really bug my neighbors. So the trick with these is you need to check the stroke. You need to see how long the stroke is on your cylinder and your tie rod. And I have 7 3/8 throw side to side, and this is an 8-inch ram, so we have to make a spacer so that way it doesn't try to push real hard on the tie rod there and screw up a bunch of stuff. So what I have cooking right now is what I read online. People normally use like a piece of aluminum and make a spacer out of that, but a piece of 5/8 aluminum is, I'm sure that's cheap. Eventually I'll do that, but right now I'm just looking for temporary. And the other thing I'm reading is people are going to Walmart and buying cutting boards, and it's kind of like a UHMW type of plastic, real tough, and that got me thinking. So I went online and started looking up if PLA is oil resistant, and to an extent it is. Like it won't hold up to gasoline, but I guess it'll hold up diesel and a couple other oils. And so I'm like, well, this is just hydraulic and you know, or like a transmission type of fluid. And I know that if people are saying that they're getting away with using it on diesel, which is a good emulsifier, which so is trans fluid, but maybe not as bad, I'm going to 3D print a spacer. So right now I have the 3D printer going, and it's printing out a 5/8 spacer, and it'll go just like that. It'll sit on this shaft and should work good enough. I am doing 100% infill on that, which so it's going to be 100% plastic all the way through, and it might work good enough. We're going to find out. I'm not afraid to try it, and if it fails, then we'll figure it out as we go. So anyways, I'm going to put the camera down. I'm going to get my mess cleaned up. I'm going to get the truck backed out of the garage and try not to get people pissed at me. So I'll see you guys in the next morning. Alright, so the truck is moved out of the way, and I'm all in for the night. I figured it might be kind of neat. I'm going to set the camera on time lapse on my 3D printer. So we'll get this guy pointed and you guys can kind of see what happens. It says it's about a 2-hour print and I've got about 12% progress so far. It's all done. Alright, I'll do a quick little test fit. And that is perfect. It worked good. Perfect. That'll limit our throw.